Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Teachers Talk Sports. I'm Johnny McGee, and I'm joined, as always, by my guy, Brian F. Fenema. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, man, I'm so high right now.
Oh, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You're a teacher.
I'm just kidding. But I did bring out, I realized, thank you to your feedback, that yes, my snow person video that I made for the kiddos this week, my Towley voice was perfect. So figured I'd bring that out. Yeah. And just so we're clear, everyone, no, I'm not. I just got out of work. but hey, I'm doing okay. It's 2020. It's just been quite the arc, right? I was definitely hitting my peaks. I'm coming back down a little bit back to earth. I could just do a quick story real quick.
Let's hear it.
We were awarded the holiday special, the 2-for-1 special. So this is really, really great. Let's see, today's Friday. So Wednesday, I was going to unload the dishwasher because I'm a responsible and the kind of husband that women just are just like, man, I wish my husband was this dialed in like Brian.
Is that true?
So I was empty. she's like, oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to be a good husband and a good lover and empty the dishwasher. Acts of service, my wife's love language. Okay. So I was like, you know what, let's do it. And then I kind of go through them. I'm like, these don't quite look clean. And then I see in there's a little bit of the little dishwasher pack thing. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Must not have worked correct. So load it back up, start again. Water starts spilling from the underneath of the dishwasher. So that's always a real fantastic sign. And so now I will say with our dishwasher, we've had a couple of issues, which I fixed myself. And I don't consider myself by any means a handy person, but I fixed this dishwasher and I almost consider myself a dishwashing specialist now. So get underneath. I'm like, okay, where's this water coming from? Sure enough, there's this little rubber 90 that looks kind of like this that goes from your water into your dishwasher. Seems logical, right? Sure. Well, ours had a little hole in it, and it didn't look like it was the kind of hole that's just created from water running through it over the years. Clearly, there is now a rodent living in our house. So the holiday special, we had to go to the hardware store for a new hose for our dishwasher and for mice traps. Now, update on the mice. We have no idea where these things are because I have a pretty good idea where they came in from. I know they're taking habitat somewhere near the dishwasher and put out some traps. The first night, the trap had been tinkered with. So I was like, okay, But old school wooden traps that just don't really work. So I was like, okay, he's down there. Or they, it's 2020. They're down there. Either way, set 2 new traps yesterday, weren't touched. So here we are. Solving problems on the fly. But, besides Chief limping around like crazy as well and throwing up about once a week, everything's great over here.
Yeah, sounds all about right. Brian's a
how are things on your end?
Mouse.
It's just one of those years. But how are things on your end, my man?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you kind of hit it on the head with 2020. It's just like an up and down ride. I'm currently extremely excited for some Blazers preseason basketball. I could say that.
Oh yeah.
Like probably more excited than I've ever been. And I've actually been like asking myself, why am I so excited about this? And I think a lot of it is because it's just like I'm in an intense quarantine right now where I'm not even like going to the grocery store because I'm going to go visit some family and being as responsible as I possibly can. And
absolutely.
So because of that, it's just like the amount of outlets that I have is pretty much nothing. And just to have something that I truly love and to distract me for just a night, I'm very, very stoked. Plus, another big piece of it is this is one of the more exciting teams I've ever rooted for as far as the NBA goes in the preseason part of the schedule, where it's just like, okay, this team has a real chance to make real noise this year. And it's just got me real excited. So, I'm doing good today. Overall, I'm a little bit like, man, I cannot wait for life to be a little bit more free again.
Yeah, sure. And going back to that excitement, those little cute little teasers that Instagram has put out a couple of times over the past week. Does that help to it? Does that also Does that also contribute to some of the excitement? Because I know I'm watching like, whoa, man, look at this practice footage. The Blazers are going to be unstoppable.
Right. Oh my God, dude. That practice
72 and 0.
I was questioning my life choices watching that practice footage. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need to dedicate my life to getting into that gym.
Like practice. Whoa.
Yeah, no, for sure. They all look so good.
Yeah.
Before we hop into the Blazers, we got to talk about the diva of the hour, James Harden. I mean,
yeah.
What player empowerment is that even? Like, what is this?
Well, we touched on it briefly in the last pod, and so we're not going to carry on about it. But I think that there's that pendulum, and it's going to start swinging. And like I said, I think that this is going to end up getting a little bit nasty when the collective bargaining agreement is up again. And I don't think the owners are going to forget moments like this. And it just has been really, really out in the forefront the past 2 seasons. And I think that we're starting a dangerous trend. We've talked about it. We know about it. Then you add to the fact that James doesn't show up for the start of camp. Then instead of showing up, he did show up the next day, and it got a lot of notoriety because of why he wasn't in camp. And that just kind of goes to show what kind of leader, I don't know, James Harden is, but his choices leading up to this season have just been, it's been really hard. It's indefensible, man. And this is not a guy that like I loathe. I mean, I don't love him, but I've always kind of respected James, and I've always kind of like, yeah, like he seems like a quirky, cool guy. Like I feel like we would be like, hey, yeah, that guy seems pretty cool to hang out with. But I mean, I like the club. I like $100,000. So I like. Yeah, you like to have a great time. Next time, where's my invite, little baby? I mean, like I thought we were tight, but like, going into it, dude, like we've said it. It's dangerous, and it could get ugly. And so here's where I want to put on record, because this popped into my brain and I haven't heard anybody else bring it up. And granted, the talk about trade has amped up quite a bit in the last 3 days. But I said, let's have Houston play hardball. Like, I just think that Houston needs cool. But this is what I'm kind of seeing. One of 2 things happening. Number one, James reports 2 weeks from now, he's got a pulled hamstring or a sore calf. Because if he just sits out, they can fine him and they don't have to pay him. But if he were to show up and get hurt, he could still collect his check and then force their hand. So I'm a little bit scared of that. My secondary thing is, how shocked would you be that if sometime over the next 2 weeks, James Harden tested positive for COVID?
Not shocked at all. I mean, he's on both coasts partying without a mask on. That's what makes me the most upset personally. Just like from a leadership role, like as a global leader or a national leader, kids are looking up to this guy. And just throw the NBA part of it out of it, which does bother me too. But just from a leadership role, it's like, man, it's inexcusable. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he got COVID.
Yeah, so they apparently the NBA players get tested every day, which is great. And so we know it hasn't happened yet. But what if it starts to get to the point where it's like, ooh, I accidentally exposed myself to somebody, and then he has a real hard time coming back from COVID? Because it's really hard to trace exactly how it affects you, and it affects people completely different. So if he could also play I've been really affected by COVID card. So I'm worried, genuinely worried, that over the next few weeks, we're not going to see him at all, because he's not going to give up the money. And so I have a feeling that there's going to be something where it's just like a standstill, where he's just like collecting his check and is like, oh, sore quad, or, oh, not feeling so well. My temperature's too high. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that he's going to fake his way out of Houston. And because that's the only real power play he really could, if he still wants to get paid.
He could do it. I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate that that's an original take. He could do that. I just wonder, James Harden, the reason he wants out in part is because he cares about his legacy. Mm-hmm. So what is he doing to his legacy right now if he either fakes an injury or shows up and mails in one of his prime seasons in the middle of his prime. Like, what does that do? I guess the counter to that is AD did it. Worked out for his legacy quite well. Jimmy Butler did it.
I didn't hear anyone bring that up. You think about those two guys that you just said. It got kind of glanced over in the finals, it wasn't really a talking point. But you're right. Like, did it damage their legacy? Jimmy's approval rating has never been better. Never been better. But I understand what you mean is, yes, there could be that little bit.
It genuinely makes me mad. Like, I know that I'm just a guy who's living my life and these guys are doing that, but it genuinely makes me upset that this guy's going to come in here and say, sure, sign me up. Like, I'm going to sign up for 40 million, 45 million per year. And you know what? By signing this contract that you have to pay me, I'm not going to honor it whatsoever. You still have to pay me. And if it's not you, it's somebody else that I want to pay me.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even though the other side of that is I give a commitment to you, nah, I'm out. And not only am I out, I'm going to lower my value to your franchise by saying I'll only go to these handful of teams. I'm going to go party with Lil Baby on the side to make my value go down even lower. It's just like, I also don't hate James Harden as a human. I dislike his style. And I think you can defend it. It's like, that's how the rules are written. He's manipulating the rules. It works for him. I guess you could defend it. But
yeah,
man, this is really he's just like being such a diva. It's like, and I said this, I think I said this on the last pod, but it's just another reason, especially in this era, that us Blazers fans should be so remarkably appreciative of Damian Lillard, that we don't have to put up with this at all. It's like the opposite of this. We get to feel fully wholesome and warm and happy about the fact that our super duper star wants to do everything he can for this community.
Yeah. And, going back to what we do, and just to tie this up, it sets a bad example for the people that we spend our lives trying to help along, try to inform. And the cool thing this year is we've had clubs for middle school. So every Tuesday we meet, and mine is obviously sports club. So the kids come in and we talk about sports, and we make bold predictions, and we just kind of talk sports. And I felt a little bit like this was the first time this week when we met where it was just the kids sitting there and I'm just like talking at them. I'm just like, don't act like this. Don't be a spoiled entitled child, and do what it takes to do the right thing. And but it was cool because the kids were, I'm trying to explain guaranteed contracts to them. I'm trying to explain how you kind of do things. And for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they kind of get it, but I'm worried about the example that it's setting, where if you're unhappy with something, just pout about it until you can get what you want. And it's tough, but it's been talked about to death. He's gonna get traded. We don't know when. I hope he has to go all the way up into the deadline, because to be honest, something that we'll get into later, Brooklyn doesn't need him. The Sixers don't necessarily need him unless, and I don't want to go too far down the hole, but Daryl and Doc are gonna give this Joel and Ben Simmons thing a chance. Like, they're not gonna be like, they're gonna be like, hey, we're smart enough men to figure this part out. They're not just gonna blow it up until they at least give it a try. They're too smart and they're too proud. So I'm not seeing a lot. And now he's opened the door to the Heat and
the Bucks,
Milwaukee, and it's just like, what? But the Bucks, it's like, I don't know. But James, just do what you signed up for, man. Just do the right thing, okay? Just do the right thing. I know you don't care what I say. I know you're not going to see this, but if you do, hey, say what's up. Maybe promote us on the gram.
Subscribe, share it.
Like and subscribe and share. But I just want him to do the right thing. And going to what you said, that's why us as Portlanders have reason and enthusiasm about this team and the construct of it. And I'm super, super stoked. Super, super stoked for the season. And I know all we've seen is just from the Portland Instagram and like practice video, but it looks good. And this looks like a fun team. And I really think the city's going to wrap around it. And I think that this is like one of those teams where people just don't know. I've seen from Hoop Central said the Blazers weren't going to make the playoffs, to I've seen as high as a 3 seed. So what do you kind of see, buddy? Like, I mean, 72 games, what do you think is realistic?
Yeah, so before I give an exact prediction, I just want to let Blazers fans know who maybe don't think of it like this, or maybe haven't like taken the time to just reflect on it at all. But
sure,
we are so lucky to be Blazers fans, because I think that we take for granted that pretty much any player that comes to Portland gets better. It's like if the Blazers draft a guy and the guy has talent, as a fan, I expect that guy to reach close to his talent ceiling. And that's not the case everywhere. If you're a fan of the Cleveland Cavs, you're a fan of the Sacramento Kings or the Hornets or a bunch of other teams, a ton of other teams, and they draft a dude that has a ton of talent, the expectation is that they're not going to live up to it. So that luxury in and of itself is so wonderful for me as a Blazers fan. It's just like, okay, so the Blazers, we're used to turning Mo Harkless into an asset. We're used to turning Jake Layman into an asset. But this year, we actually have a guy, Robert Covington, who in all these top 100 lists that keep coming out is a top 50, top 60 player who fits into this team like an absolute glove. And so I expect Robert Covington, and part of it is I'm an optimistic human in general, but also part of it is the fact that the Blazers people play well here, and it has to do with Terry, Neal, it has to do with Dame. It's just a culture that gets the best out of guys. And so I fully expect Robert Covington to have one of his best, if not his best year ever this year. And like I said, that's optimistic, but I think it's realistic too. He just fits in like a glove. What he's excellent at is exactly what the Blazers need. And so because of that, and I think this, like, I just expect Derrick Jones Jr. to live up to his potential here. And it just, because of all of those things, and I look at the West and I'm like, you could make the argument that Robert Covington was the best addition of any of the teams that were ahead of the Blazers in the playoffs last year. Like the Lakers got Schroeder, the Clippers got Ibaka, the Nuggets lost Jeremy Grant, the Suns, who are below us, got Chris Paul, but Covington was one of the biggest additions in the top of the Western Conference last year. And I think all the pieces fit in. I think, so with all that being said, I think that if I'm looking at the Blazers, I'd say like an absolute best case scenario, everything breaks right. Anthony Simons makes a leap. He can play backup point guard. Covington fits out perfectly. Derrick Jones is a real starting small forward. I think that the ceiling for the Blazers is the 2 seed, which would be a high ceiling for sure. But I could see it happening. I really could. And I think that the basement for the Blazers is because the West is absolutely stacked. I mean, the Jazz are good. The Mavericks are good. The Suns are going to be pretty good. I'd say the basement for the Blazers, the 6th seed, 6th, maybe 7th seed, which would be bad. And I think a realistic expectation is the Blazers get that 4th seed in a jam-packed conference where they're just a couple games away from 2nd, couple games away from 6th. So my overall prediction is Blazers get the home court in the first round with that 4 seed. But really, it could go so many different ways.
Sure. I mean, we're only 2 years away from a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals, and I know last year was different, but not a lot of people are going to sit back and remember that Dame missed time in November and December. CJ missed some time. That was where the Carmelo signing came from, is the necessity. We needed bodies. And so the team was beat. Yusuf wasn't in there. Zach wasn't in there. And so, like, I don't think a lot of people remember that. I think a lot of people are just like, man, the Blazers were an 8 seed and they got smoked by the Lakers. That's what's on people's minds. That's not who this team was. This team was scrappy and had really never even had a chance to play at full potential until the bubble. And so it was nice, and they showed well in the bubble, and it's fine what happened against LA. The better team won, but they got better despite what anyone wants to say, because no one really seems to give a crap. But they did. They got better. I think the 2 is ambitious. I'm in that 3 to 4 range. I really am. I think that that's solid, and I've never once been one to sit back and really be hesitant on ambition and thinking about where we are as a franchise. But I think that this could be easily a 45-win team, 50 if everything stays right and we're healthy. I mean, I like it, and we as Blazer fans are lucky. You're right. This is an exciting team to root for. They do things the right way. They're out in the community when you're allowed to be out in the community. They're in the forefront. They seem to be good guys. They seem to like each other. Dane has this team locked down and locked in. And then you add to the fact that we have an incredible color scheme and our logos are sweet. Like it's good. It's good to be a Blazers fan, man. It really is.
It really is.
Yeah. I love the ambition.
It sounds like we're pretty much in agreement there. And it's just like you think back to that Western Conference team, and in my opinion, this team's clearly more talented. I mean, that team was based off of the same top offensive guys. And then instead of Mo, you have Derek Jones, and instead of Chief, you have Covington, which both are additions. You think about last year, I mean, like positive, they're better than those guys. And then you think about last year, and last year coming into the season, the Blazers had pretty high hopes. So much of that hope, you forget, or I forgot until I was reading about it last night. So much of that hope was based off of Zach Collins making a super leap as a starting 4. And then he gets hurt, and it felt like that was the first thing that started spiraling the season out of control. This year,
that started 3 games in, you know?
Right. This year, Zach Collins is a pure luxury. If he were playing at his best, he would not be a starter on this team. And well, maybe he would. Maybe you move Covington up to the 3, but he's not better than Covington at 4. And he's going to come back in January, and the expectations are so much lower. But I still feel like he's gonna have a good year. I feel. And it's so nice that, like, you think about last year, the season hinged on him and becoming a defensive linchpin. This year, he's kind of just gravy. So it's just like when you think about all those types of things, the team is just so deep. There's so many different things that could pop off. There's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're right. And I guess it's time for me to take a step back to where I was when Zach got drafted. Okay. I said I loved the pick because Zach knows exactly who he is. He was a 6th man, believe it or not. He was a 6th man on his high school team. He was a 6th man at Gonzaga, so he knew who he was. He was a 6th man on his AAU team. Apparently, he played with Peyton Pritchard, and they were in a very dominant AAU team.
Wow.
So he knows who he is, and he knows that he fits a role. I will say that my expectation has always been that when he's healthy, he is the automatic starter at the 4. But if he's in the luxury to be able to bring off the bench, I'm okay with that as well. But we need not forget that this is the most important season for Zach Collins, because if he wants to continue his NBA career and if he wants to get paid, because he will be a free agent next year, it's time to show up, and it's time to fight through, and it's time to try and put a healthy season together. And a motivated Zach is the one that I'm looking forward to. This guy's got it. It's just, can he put it all together? And I think it'd be a great luxury. I think you're right. And it gives even more versatility to our lineups, and it gives even more threat. And I love the idea. And I think that's a really great point, buddy. I really do. That's a stellar point. And I'm probably that guy. I am maybe the leader of the Zach Collins family. I love this guy. I love him. I don't know what it is. I think it's just, this dude is stunningly handsome. He's got so much swag. I love the way he plays the game. He's just like that new big where he's got face-up game, and he does not take anybody's grief. And he's like that one kind of dog, obviously besides Dame, that we have. And he's that kind of guy who other teams like, man, screw that dude. Like, what is this guy's problem? And so I love having that. And I know I'm being a little bit of an apologist, but I love his trajectory. I still do. And I mean, we can't predict injuries, and it's really, really weird basketball, how some of this stuff happens. But we said it, my brother was in town when that happened, and he had just suffered the exact same injury. And right. Kyle, it took him a full calendar year for him to be able to lift his elbow above where his shoulder is. And he's like, dude, this is not good news. And I'm like, it's fine. He's a professional athlete, Kyle. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, he just wasn't right. And if he can get himself right and maybe limit the minutes, he's not a 32-minute, 30-minute guy. Maybe he's a 25-minute guy, and I would love that, because we need rotational pieces and we need bigs who can stay out of foul trouble. So I like it. I like that outlook. I really do. And I know where you are on the Derek Jones piece of this, and I think that we all are very interested to see where he fits in. But I would love to see Zach at that 4.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm excited about Derek Jones. I acknowledge that he has his warts. I'm just excited about him because, as I've said before, basketball is an entertainment product, and this dude, he flies. Like, he has obvious warts in his game. I don't want to get that twisted. He can't shoot very well, which is enormous. Like, if you're a wing and you can't shoot that well, you're going to need to figure that out. But from an entertainment standpoint, this kid just, like, he's going to make you scream. He just flies. It's so cool. And he plays great defense. I think that you can't underrate the impact of Robert Covington's knowledge and presence from a defensive standpoint. Like, instead of Zach Collins having to be like, maybe with Nurkic, like the guy defensively, now we have like a proven elite defender that all those other dudes, Zach Collins, Derek Jones Jr., Gary Trent, they're all going to look up to him, and he's going to be able to teach them the little things. And I think that kind of stuff you can't underestimate that. Sure. I do want to talk a little bit about some things to watch for this year. So, we know Dame's going to be good. We know CJ's going to be good. But some things that maybe we're not entirely sure of that I think that'll be the difference between us maybe getting that 3-ish seed, or maybe dropping down to like a 6, or maybe making a roster move.
Sure.
So the number one tip-top thing that I'm looking for is, how does Anthony Simons look? Coming into last year, we were all real excited for him. In my opinion, he was, I hate to say this on record, but he was absolutely atrocious last year.
Es basura?
On both sides of the ball. Anytime he was guarding someone on ball, I expected that to be a dunk, and it almost always was. And then, like, you couple that with his percentages weren't that good. He's not a very good creator at the moment. But, the team believes in him, or at least Dame says he believes in him. You can see the outlines. He's big. He's long. He could jump out of the gym. He has, you like to talk yourself into the fact that he could be a good shooter. He shoots out of a lot of different spots. He has the step back. So is he a real player? And I think that's a big one, not just for this year, but also if you start to like have an eye for the future. It's like, once this window of Dame ends, like, what's the next step? And I think that's part of why they didn't re-sign a backup point guard, is because they just want to know for sure what they have in Simons. And so either he's a backup point guard, or we're going to need to go and look and get, like, Shabazz is still a free agent, maybe a JJ Barea. Like, we might need to go hire a dude that just is a steady hand to give us 10 to 15 minutes a night in the playoffs. If Simons isn't that guy. So that, like, first and foremost, I'm looking for Simons. I think that he has a lot to grow, and he's a big deal for the future, as well as what this team's potential is for this year. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Simons maybe was a little bit of a victim of circumstance last year. And I think it was because all eyes, like, everyone was just like, hey, everybody, here's the pop player for next year. It's I think a big thing that goes into Anthony's game is this guy is not afraid. And clearly the coaching staff trusts him, because this dude's got a green light, because we saw hundreds of bad shots last year, hundreds. And I'm talking about Carmelo level bad shots. And he's never getting pulled for that stuff. He gets pulled for his defensive lapses and his inability to stay in front of people. We don't know. And I think maybe flying a little bit under the radar and maybe having some of the shine going towards Gary could help that. So I'm excited to see it. But this is another thing where it's a big year for Collins. It's a big year for Anthony, so that we know going forward, do we have another guy that we can rely on, or is it time to bring somebody else in? Thinking about it and looking around the landscape of the league, I was all about bringing Baz back, bringing Shabazz Napier back. And I was like, hey, I think this is a great idea. Can shoot, can handle. We know. And plus he's a guy who's been in the city and played in the system. So I was a little bit interested. Yeah. Yeah. And Shabazz is the man. And so I'm okay with it being Simons. I know I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with it, because the biggest thing is we've only got 4 guards on this team, so they all got to stay healthy, or it starts to become real thin. So I'm excited to see what we get out of Simons, but I think, like I said, going back, I think he was a little bit victim of maybe a little too much shine a little too early.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was, like you said, he was all up in the national media too. I remember reading a couple of articles like, yep, for the NBA, this is the guy to watch. And maybe that just proved to be a little too much for the kid.
And that kind of notoriety doesn't come out this way very often. Like, people couldn't care less about the Robert Covington trade. All that was really said was, oh my God, 2 first-rounders for Robert Covington? No one really talked about the actual trade because no one really talks about this team. And we've always talked about it. Keep sleeping on it. That's fine. But
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, and so the fact that he was getting that.
Covington does get real respect though. Like if you read the articles from guys that are breaking down analytics, like everyone has him as a top 50, 55 player, which is awesome. Like most people in the analytics community have him ranked right around where they have Nurkic ranked, which is just like pretty exciting.
Well, good. Yeah.
Anyways, I'm looking for Simons, I'm looking for Collins, like we've talked about, and then I'm looking for Gary. So Gary, he popped. He was awesome in the bubble. I'm confident that he will, but he decided not to extend his contract where he could have had 4 years for $60 million, and decided to bet on himself. In hopes that this next offseason he'll get a bigger contract, which, there's a great chance that happens. It's not too often that a 22-year-old guy that can shoot the lights out and play defense comes available. So I fully expect, and I've watched every single interview that these guys have given, almost every player after practices. So I feel like I have a good sense of who these people are as humans.
I know him.
And Gary Trent just seems absolutely locked in. I fully expect him to have a real nice year. I think that he's coming in, he's confident, he knows his role. And so he's another one to watch. It's just to see where he goes. And now I know you're going to hate this, but another reason why this is important is if the Blazers do decide to swing for the fences for the next disgruntled star that comes along.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
I know.
Does it rhyme with hat?
This is where we agree. But if that's going to happen, those guys are going to need to get their value up. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if those guys can increase their value, you could package them together. You can go and be in play for the next James Harden type player.
This is all we can hope for is that we have assets. Obviously, we want our guys to look better. We don't want to be like, hey, what would be really great is if our guys suck, so no one traded for him. But that's not a thing. No one thinks like that. It's obviously I want our guys, but this is the conversation we have about every October to December, where there's 2 topics we talk about, where you ask me about fictional trades, and then you ask me something else, and I say, Johnny, just give me until the Super Bowl, bro. Just let me just watch the Blazers, and let me, because my razor focus has always been the NFL, and it takes a lot of my brain bandwidth to do that. But I mean, yes, and that's the thing is I would love for us to move into it and for us to get to the Januarys and the Februarys, and for you to not be like, what do you think of this trade?
What do you, my life.
What about this one? and just a look behind the curtain. Is this your face when you do it? He's gonna hate this one.
No. I'm like, oh, I hope that he's not mad about this. But
I mean, I'll look behind the curtain, everybody. Johnny tried to give me one this week, and I just said, can we please not do this? And it's too early.
But I didn't include the one player that I knew would make him the most mad on purpose, and it still made him mad. So I don't know where to go from here, guys.
I mean, we're in year 3 of Johnny coming up with who can we trade CJ McCollum for?
I didn't say CJ.
I know where you were going with it. I know where you were going. Well, good. Yeah, I mean, yes, these are the guys that we need to rely on, and Gary betting on himself, I think, we do this kind of stuff where you see it, and I guess maybe they just don't get a lot of coverage, but you don't hear a lot of stories of well, this guy was a complete idiot for betting on himself. He's going to lose himself millions and millions of dollars. Maybe with Le'Veon Bell. But it's come on, this guy. Gary extra motivated, dude, I'm about that noise. Like, I'm all about it. And so I like it. I love where he fits in. He knows who he is as a person, as a professional, comes from a great family. So I like Gary. Obviously, I want him to do well. That was a lot of money that he said no to. And I would have been like, oh, it's a great deal for both sides. And so, I hope we're not backing up the Brinks truck in a year. But, it might be a good problem to have, like I said.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah,
so that's it's in your 50 win projection. Is that based off of an 82 game season, or you think we're going to get 50 out of 72?
So that's what I'm thinking is 72. I think the 45 to 50 range is pretty realistic. I mean, I don't, maybe not realistic is the right word, but everything that I went through today, I tried to look at everyone's little projections of totals. Thanks a lot, ESPN. I'm not going to pay for a stupid subscription to hear what your idiot writers think about how many we're going to do. But some of the other more reputable websites, usually that range, the lowest I saw was 40, the highest I saw was 46. So I'm in that 45 to 50 range. So yeah, I think that's very realistic. I think that's a 3 to 4. I think the Lakers win 55, 58, 60 games, depending on what it looks like as far as what their season starts out like. The Clippers, we don't know. I think the Blazers are kind of in that Clippers, Denver kind of tier. Utah, I think it's very achievable.
Yeah, so I think we'll be a little lower than 50. I'm thinking maybe more like I think that we would win 50 games, maybe 52 if it was an 82 game season. So whatever that translates to, that's what I think.
It's like 46, 47, I guess.
But so looking at the beginning of the season, just that first 6 games really jumped out to me.
Yeah, that was the first thing you said.
They looked really tough, but on a deeper glance, so we got Utah first, followed by the Rockets. And then I think the next game after that is the Lakers. Is that right?
It's the double at LA. So Lakers, Clippers.
The Clippers and the Lakers. So at first that seemed really scary to me. Utah's good. The Rockets, when I first looked at this, it was before the Harden stuff had really gone downhill. They're a scary team. The Lakers. But now as it's getting closer to it, I'm actually feeling a little more encouraged because we have the Rockets are obviously in shambles. And then the Lakers, they've said that they're going to rest LeBron, and that will be the first back-to-back. So the Lakers are playing the Blazers on the second night of a back-to-back, and that'll be the Lakers' first back-to-back. So there's a real good chance that they'll rest LeBron for that game. So
suck it, Joe Gray.
Yeah, exactly. So of those first 6 games, if we could go, 4-2, the next month looks real nice. Like there's a ton of winnable games in that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so if we could just go 4-2, 3-3 would not be the end of the world in those first 6 games, and then come into that next stretch and just kill it. The Blazers will be looking nice. And I think the Blazers have talked about it repeatedly. The importance of a good start to this season is everything, because we don't want to have to be playing from behind all year long again.
Dude, the Blazers, just looking at it, the Blazers might only lose a game or 2 in January. January is hey, it's a great month to be a Blazers fan. There's a Golden State back-to-back to start the new year, which is fine. Chicago, Minnesota, Sacramento, Toronto, tough. Sacramento again, Indiana, Atlanta, dude, San Antonio, Memphis, New York, OKC, Chicago again with Houston in there.
It's just so bad.
Dude, January is
so bad. There's so many winnable. The only games in there that are kind of scary is what? Toronto,
Memphis. A double head-to-head with Memphis at home, which is great. And so, dude,
January should be nice.
This is interesting. How about Monday, January 18th, a noon tip? Is that MLK? That must be MLK.
I think last year MLK was the 20th. I'm not sure.
No, it's got to be, because it's a 12 p.m. on a Monday. Yeah, it's got to be. So okay. I was this is weird. I love it. Everyone knows I'm unabashed to middle of the day programming because of the current situation with my teaching. So yeah, but that's the thing is, and then when you build that kind of confidence, and if you can have a good month like we're saying, that just carries over and carries over, and that's where it comes from. And that's when we could really start to make that noise and start to feel it in the locker room and be like, hey, dude,
Right.
this is real. I look forward to the trajectory of Yusuf as well. Everyone's been saying I'm a maniac because I keep buying and buying and buying. You buy while it's low, fellas. And when ladies, you buy when it's low, and then you sell when it's at its best. And Yusuf keeps climbing. Christian Rose, I know you're listening. He's at least in this range as far as best centers around, 3 to 5. I love him. I know I'm a maniac. I know I'm an apologist for this guy as well. He's incredible, and I can't wait to see Yusuf as well. This guy does it all. Also, just like weird repeat note. Remember when we made the Western Conference Finals? That was also about Yusuf too. And so, like, this is a completely different team. Like, I love this team of versatility. Times have we had a guy who plays above the rim as a Blazers fan? Like, there's not a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of guys who just are up above the rim that have played for this franchise, and so he's going to be fun. But I think excitement abounds.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to before we wrap up today, I want to get some of your. Have you been looking at some futures odds at all for some bets heading on over to the gambling corner? Because I've taken a look a little bit at like the MVP odds, but I know you're always a little more dialed into this stuff, so I'm interested to know what you're looking at.
Johnny, of course. I'm a degenerate. Yeah, the odds, the championship odds, I don't think I'll do that. I think I will, do the same thing I kind of did when I was in college, where I always sprinkle a little like $2 on the fact that the Lobos won the national championship. Spoiler, they never do. But, the Blazers at 22 to 1 odds. Hey, I love that. But it's kind of interesting. Lakers are pretty heavy favorites, almost 2 times lower odds than the Clippers. This Nets thing at 6 to 1 odds, who knows? That's kind of interesting. The C's then go from, so the Nets are 6 to 1 odds, and then the next team is 14 to 1 odds in Boston. So clearly Vegas thinks that this is a 4-team race with the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, and the Nets, with the Heat coming up at 16 to 1 odds. So that's interesting. But I mean, I think that there's not a lot as far as outright. I think the stuff that I'm really interested in are actually some of the player props, the player season win stuff. Like, that's the kind of thing I'm looking forward to. Like, the MVP, you actually texted me about it. Like, who do you think the MVP is? I was like, Giannis, and Luka with 4.5 to 1 odds to be the MVP. That's I'm about it. I love that guy with Giannis, LeBron, and then Steph at 4. That's muy interesante.
Mm-hmm.
But no love for our guy Dame, 13 to 1. That's fine. Behind Harden and Davis, so that's good. But there's a couple other awards. What do you think about Rookie of the Year, Johnny?
I haven't looked at the odds, but
yeah. Without looking, I was hoping you hadn't, but
yeah. I honestly think the odds-on favorite should be Obi Toppin. And I wouldn't be surprised if LaMelo Ball is up there, although I think I'm not high on LaMelo Ball. But I'm gonna go. I think is Obi Toppin near the top of the odds?
Obadiah has the 4th best odds at 6 to 1.
Okay. Other guys that I might I think LaMelo's gonna have high odds, and Tyrese Halliburton's probably not going to have the role to get there. Maybe Killian Hayes for Detroit.
Isn't that an interesting story? But I think Hayes and Halliburton are kind of guys who I could see. Like, the thing that's keeping me from Hayes is I don't think the Pistons are going to be A, watchable, and B, good. So, you got to have a little bit of narrative. We've all, it's always been talked about when it comes to the MVP is what's the storyline?
Right. And that's part of why I think Obi Toppin might have a chance, because he's playing in New York, and if he puts up numbers, there's a good chance that he's going to get some shine.
Set himself aside. I really like it. 10 to 1 odds on Killian Hayes. So I kind of like that.
So who was the top? You cut out for me for a second there. Who's the top?
Oh,
odds?
sorry. Yeah, I mean LaMelo, James, or Anthony Edwards and James Wiseman, and then Toppin is 4, Hayes is 5 at 10-1. Avdia is 11-1, so pretty close. Avdia, sorry. For some reason, Bol is on this list.
Not a rookie.
Maybe I should bet it.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, you didn't win because he didn't win Rookie of the Year. But yeah, I mean, so I mean, there's some interesting ones, but
so I'd put, if I was betting on this, I'd put a little bit of money on Toppin, and then for the MVP, I don't know. I kind of talk myself into that Kevin Durant odds a little bit. I mean, he's coming off that Achilles, though. I think he's going to be one of the main things to watch this year. But
16-1 odds, I think. I mean, those are great odds. See, that's the thing is, it's not about finding the guy.
It matters.
Yeah, but it's about finding good odds, and like those are incredible. I think that's the best value is Durant at 16-1. I mean, even with Dame and Kawhi are 13-1 odds. So Durant has worse odds than those two guys. I mean, are we forgetting who Kevin Durant is? Like,
I know, healthy, he's the second best player in the league, maybe the best player in the league.
Yeah, and I'm about that. Yeah, you're right. So that's quite the interesting.
But the Nets have Kyrie, so it's almost certain to be a dumpster fire over there, man. I mean, it's just, I mean, I know it's more complicated than this, but to me, it's just so obvious. You just ship Kyrie out in that trade. Ship Kyrie out for Harden. You're so much better. The Rockets aren't going to get a better deal than that. And then you don't have to deal with Kyrie anymore. But I guess you got to deal with Harden.
Dude, I don't know. Could you imagine if they're like, yeah, do it. Like Kyrie's a wackadoodle. Let's trade one wacko for another one. I mean,
have you seen him not talking to the media and all this jazz? And him saying today is just like, you just need to appreciate the art. I don't do it for the distractions. Like, dude, it's literally in your contract that you need to talk to the media. This isn't like, come on, man.
There's certain people where, like I don't have a big love loss for Kyrie. Like my appreciation from him comes solely from one domain. He puts together a good shoe. So yes, I've got some 3s, some 4s, some 5s, and some 6s, and I'll get the 7s. But that's really the only place that Kyrie really ranks or even hits onto my radar. I like that he's a classic player. I like that he's maybe one of the better finishers when it comes to under the rim, which I kind of like. But he's a freaking nut. He's a nut. Yeah. Can you imagine, like, one of the most prestigious academic universities in the world, Duke? Like, yeah, this guy attended our school. You think that they're putting him on the commercial for some of the people who have gone to Duke? So they're like, Kyrie. But whatever. It's exciting, and like I said, we get a chance to get a little tease tonight. There's not much as far as like how much stock we put into tonight, but it'll be fun to see see some people. I'd love to start getting in there. I think maybe February, March, there could be a realistic opportunity that I could kind of get there. I don't want to go a full calendar year. What did we say last year? I'm looking at the poster right now because, like I said, we had to have gone together because it was a Kings game. I think it's March 22nd, pal. And no, it could have been the 22nd because we already shut down.
You mean that we could go to a game?
Yeah, I think it was. Man. It might have been the 13th. It might have been right before my birthday.
That would be so great. Just, man, that would be so great.
It's got to be before. I hope so. Yeah. We'll see, man. It's a lot of fun to think about, and we'll continue to break these down. Maybe even bring some extra people on and see how they're feeling about some of these Blazers games. There's the NBA is a classic about 2 a week. So if we're breaking down a couple games a week, I think it'd be nice to get some blood up in here and see how everybody else is feeling about it. But, it's exciting. Just keep close to your cell phones, y'all, because who knows? You might get that magic text. Hey, you get to be a special guest appearance on Teachers Talk Sports. And that's how you have to read it.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have some guests on, and I just want to say for all of you listeners out there, we really appreciate you so much, and it's been such a good thing for us to be doing this all the time and to continue to grow. And just want to say, you know, if you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing here, please tell a friend or two. Be sure to subscribe, like, share us on your social media. That stuff all helps so much. And just want to say that we really appreciate all that you've done for us so far. So thank you for that, and looking forward to pumping out some more content as this season gets started.
For sure. I mean, two of the people that, you know, one of the guys that I really, really admire, Joe Rogan, just got his 100 million like little plaque for YouTube. I could see us getting there maybe in a couple of years, probably not just in 2021, but maybe by 2022 we have 100 million subscribers.
I think it's realistic. I mean, you got to set your goals realistically.
Hey, shoot for the stars. Sometimes you end up in the clouds, you know?
Hey, there it is.
All right, man. This is always fun. Always fun.
Absolutely.
Okay, broski. Well, I don't think we'll be able to get in the lab until after the holiday, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on the schedule. Things tip off in just under 2 weeks. So pretty excited, but you know, you're going to hear from us, y'all. Yeah. And don't forget, like Johnny said, it makes a big difference. If you just hit those likes, you hit the subscribe button, and even if you hit that little bell notification, we don't have to text you or go onto our Instagram to tell you that a video is available. You could be the first one. You might, who knows, we might do a prize for first comment. A prize. It's not going to be a PlayStation 5, but it might be something fun. All right, man. Really good seeing you. Hey, tell your family I said hello. Be safe these holidays. I look forward to doing this again. You know, we might be able to do it in a little alternative home situation. That might be fun for the viewers to be able to be like, look at that little background. That's a little different. So, you know, who knows?
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Send my love to your family as well. And I'll talk to you real soon. Goodbye.
All right, buddy. Go Blazers.
Go Blazers.